Oh, we're going to talk about a guy who was revolutionary in every way when it comes to the acoustic bass, the real bass, the stand-up bass, baby, the bass violin, the contrabass. Yes, we're talking about Mr. James Blanton. Now, he was nicknamed Jimmy, and there's some people who get all hung up on little stuff. Well, he was really supposed to be Jimmie, but Duke and those cats, they misspelled it because they spelled it Jimmy. No, they didn't. Let's just get that out of the history books right now, okay? Y'all just don't know black folks real well. Let me talk to you a little bit. When you're little, they might call you Jimmy, like Jimmie, like Jimmy on Good Times. That's an I-E Jimmy, kid. But when you become a man, nobody is gonna call you Jimmy, Jimmie. No, that's for a boy. And there was enough of that stuff going on where black men were being called boys, so no one's gonna spell a black man's nickname the way you spell a black boy's nickname. That makes sure we understand that little distinction there, because it's in a whole lot of history books and it's just dead wrong. It's Jimmy, out of respect that this is a young man. Capiche? Okay, let's move on away from that. He is born in Chattanooga, Tennessee, one of my favorite towns. A very good thing, too. You're going to find out later why that's a good thing. He grew up as a violinist. What? Ain't these black folks playing violin? Didn't you see Roots? Didn't you see Fiddler? We've been playing the violin since there was a violin. Matter of fact, one of Mozart's violin concertos was written for black violinists in Europe. So yeah, violin's been with us for a long time. He grew up playing the instrument and played it as a child, played it in middle school and high school, or junior high and high school, or whatever they want to call those schools in those days. But he ended up at Tennessee State University. Would have been Tennessee A&I back in the day, Tennessee Agricultural and Industrial, but eventually became Tennessee State University in Nashville, Tennessee. He went to school there. And while he was there, he switched from the violin to the bass. Now, remember, he started out playing the violin, all these hard concertos, all this hard technique and stuff, double stops and whatnot. When he went to the stand-up bass, he took all of that understanding with him. And although it required a bigger spread and a different kind of a spread, he had a big hand. He had that claw, so he could do it. And all of that advanced technique that he had learned on the violin, he thought it was only natural to do it on the big violin, the bass. And he did. And immediately, he was a standout. He caught the attention of everybody. So on his little vacations from college, he would go up the road to Paducah, Kentucky, to play in Fate Marable's band. And I want to take just a minute to take this little side trip to let you know about Fate Marable. You hear that name a lot. Who and what was Fate Marable? Well, he had a band that was kind of the graduate school for all young jazz players, people like Sweets Edison and Jimmy Forrest and people like that. They came out of Fate Marable's training school. Yeah. It's where young jazz musicians learn how to be better at being jazz musicians. And Fate himself started out as a piano player, but his first professional gig was on a steamboat that had one of those steam-driven keyboards. Had a couple problems. When you got steam blowing, you got water. When you got steam blowing, the keys might be a little bit hot. So this thing was kind of hard to play. But Fate Marable, either he was very creative or very desperate or something, he figured it all out. He showed up to the gig with gloves and rain gear. I ain't getting wet, I'm not burning my hand, but I'm gonna make this money. And when the steam would go down and the pitch would change, he'd just modulate. And he just learned to handle this very difficult and very loud instrument as well, because it's driven by steam on a steamboat, so it's loud. So he also had one extra preparation that he had to make, and that was to pack his ears with cotton, keep out the water and keep out the noise. So this is the kind of person, very adaptable, very determined, that Faith Marable was. And the people that came into his, how shall we say this, training school, his little band, they learned the same thing. And Jimmy Blanton was in that school. Yes, he was. By 1938, he is such a fixture that he drops out of Tennessee State. And he moved to St. Louis to play in the Jeter Filar's band, a band led by a tenor sax, alto sax player, big band. And there he began to integrate all that he had learned and had applied to the bass. The whole classical pizzicato, where you can play pizzicato by holding a bow in the same hand, then switch it and do arco. Yeah, pizzicato, you pick it with your fingers. Arco is with the bow. Yes, okay. He could do those things interchangeably. He was that kind of a technician, and no one had ever seen that kind of thing before. And so he's also got this incredible technique, and he's got this ability to play in all the positions on the bass, so he has an extraordinary range on the bass. He grew up with a little bitty violin, so his sense of pitch is incredible. He plays so well in tune, and his tone is monstrous because his whole life had been playing string instruments, so he understood how you have to connect that string to the fingerboard to get that really good sound. He was just firing on all cylinders. In 1938, he is in that Jeter Filar's big band, and he is scaring bass players to death all over the country wherever they went. Somewhere along the line, Edward Kennedy Ellington heard about this young bass player. And so by 1939, Jimmy Blanton is playing in the Duke Ellington Orchestra. And Duke is so happy, he don't know what to do. He's got a guy who is redefining what we know as the bass. The bass becomes a solo instrument, so much so that Ellington did something that had never been done before. He recorded in 1939. As soon as he got Jimmy in the band, he recorded duets, piano and bass. Just listen to a tune called The Blues, and you can hear the facility and the clarity and the time and the swing and the groove of a Jimmy Glenton. You can hear that this Duke is just kind of sprinkling his little magic along the way. But what Duke is doing is setting up a platform for Jimmy Blanton to shock the world. They did it again in 1940, more of those duets, never before done. And Duke also used him in his small group recordings. And Duke changed the setup of the Duke Ellington Orchestra itself. The bass player wasn't out back anymore. No. When Jimmy came into the band, he put Jimmy right down front next to the piano. And you know what? Most smart jazz band directors, at least this one for sure, whenever I got an acoustic bass, he's gonna be right down front with the acoustic piano, just like Duke said you're supposed to do in 1939 when he had Jimmy Blanton join that band. This was revolutionary. So you got Ellington on piano, you got Blanton right there with the bass, who's becoming the great soloist that no one had ever heard anything like that before. And you got Ben Webster, the tenor saxophone soloist right there. 1, 2, 3, triple threat right down front. Jimmy Blanton revolutionized what we know as jazz bass. The use of passing tones in his solos, not just the root, third, fifth, seventh, but all the notes of the scale, even chromaticism, that's Jimmy Blanton. Opening up the harmonic understanding of solos and expanding the melodic concepts of solos, that's Jimmy Blanton. Every person who has played the bass since 1939 needs to thank Jimmy Blanton for freeing you from 1 and 5, because prior to 1939, all you had was the 1 and the 5, baby, that's it. So Jimmy Blanton gave you the entire scale, the entire harmonic structures that are available. He informed the techniques used in bebop in the 40s and in hard bop in the 50s, although Jimmy Blanton got sick with tuberculosis and he died at the age of 23 in 1942 of tuberculosis. We're having one of these discussions today. Yeah, back in those days, TB could kill you. And today, we don't think 2 cents about it because we have vaccinations that prevent us from dying from tuberculosis. Yet we have a different kind of conversation now, don't we? I wonder what Jimmy Blanton would say about it. But as I said, he left us in 1941 at the age of 23. But what he did was revolutionary and life-changing for every bass player that followed him. And all bass players owe their gift of freedom of expression and the ability they have to take solos and to use all sorts of harmonic devices and to free themselves to use the entire bass and to do both pizzicato and arco in jazz. That is all a debt that is owed to Jimmy, Jimmy Blanton. Thank you very much for listening.